folks? Am I on? Okay. Okay, for those of you joining us on Zoom, we're just gathering here. It's just going to be a couple more minutes, so please bear with us. I think you probably remember that from last quarterly meeting. So grab some coffee or tea or whatever you'd like as people are checking in here. Jen. Hey, Kathy, is Jennifer tracking the people who are coming in online? The members coming in online? She's up at the front with a laptop. No, thanks. Where's my gavel? Remember last time we used like something from the bookstore? Okay, but she's watching it online. Okay, cool. Oh, there we go. Okay. Craig, can I use is this your bowl? Oh, it's our bowl. Never mind. It's our bowl. Okay, beautiful. I think this is what we did or something to this effect. Little thing underneath. What little thing? Oh, you mean put this underneath here? And then if I do, it'll, okay. The unit. Okay, Unity's version side. Okay. You wouldn't know I actually have one of these at home. All right. Again, for those of you at home, we are going to give this about 2 or 3 more minutes. We've got quite a few people just checking in. And we're just wanting to get to our quorum. Mary Jane, can you let me know when we have a quorum? Mm. 50 or 25% of the membership, which is 35. It would be nice to have 50, which is our floor, but we can have 25% of membership if we have less than 50, which comes out to be 35. Yes, everybody please sign in if you have not signed in. And of course, those of you online will be checking your names off as well. Jennifer, have you also checked? No, I don't think she can hear me. Connie, can you see if Jennifer's also checking off the people that are online that are members? Thanks. I'm waiting for Mary Jean to give me like official word. I know. Yeah, it looks that way. I just not 100% on membership of all attendees at this moment.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Mm. They've got. Hi, Joe. Yes. No. Okay. Got it. Thank you. Mary Jean, we're running about 10 minutes behind. Are we there yet? No. We're not at 35. It looks like there's 35 people here. Easily. Has everybody that's in the audience signed in? If you haven't, can you please sign in so we can count the members that are here? No, just they've got the little sheet back there to count. So okay, wonderful. We always love to hear that. Thank you, Mary Jean. After determining that there is a quorum, I am going to call this meeting to order. So this is our version at Unity of ringing the gavel. Okay, sure, Craig. Craig could have done that way better. let's just dispense of this. We'll give Lisa some training later. All right. Welcome to all the members that are both here and those of you joining online. I now call to order the annual membership meeting of Unity of Tustin for 2023. Representing the spiritual ministry team, I'd like to invite Craig Phillips up to open up today's meeting with prayer. Come on up, Craig, please. Oh, great. Excellent. Show us how to do it.
I'll need a mic for this. So let's listen. Let's close our eyes for a moment. All of you at the service today, or most of you. And listen. As we listen to the singing bowl, let's feel that the sound is bringing us together as one, including all of those on Zoom or YouTube or wherever they're at, coming together as one in the sound of the singing bowl. So we feel that great mystery that we have been sharing today, and we pray that as we move into the meeting, that everything that is said or not said or presented today will come out of that divine presence, out of that great mystery, which blesses us all as we come together as a community, because in community, there is such strength, there is such grace, and there is such power. And so let's rest in that together, even as we enjoy the meeting together. And so it is.
Thank you, Craig. Beautiful. And so it is. Let's get started. Let's get started with a roll call. As I call out all members of the board, can you please stand? So obviously, I am Lisa Colabar, your board president. Connie Carter's here, our wonderful vice president. Todd Bopel, treasurer. Kathy Andrews, secretary. Deanna, I don't know what was funny about that. But I'm all for humor. Deanna is in Mexico. So Deanna, we wish her a wonderful trip. We have Kim Manning here, member at large. And then, of course, from the spiritual ministry team, we just saw Craig here with us today. Also, you will hear from Shara and Reverend Blair throughout today's meeting as well. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And let's review the agenda really quick. So opening 15 minutes. We are at 15 minutes right now, so I'm going to zip through this so that we catch up, okay? Okay, I'm going to have a president's report. Todd's going to have a treasurer's report. That's going to take up about half of the meeting. The rest of the meeting is going to be all new stuff, and all your board members and leadership team members coming up, presenting all the new and great, wonderful things that they're doing, followed by a Q&A process that we always have, and then a closing prayer, okay? We will try to make up even more time if we can, because that is a long agenda, I know that, but we've got lots of good stuff for you today, so hang with us, and we'll maybe do a stretch break after Todd. Okay, I want to just do a really big, really quick recap on. So as everybody knows, we kind of started a few years ago by developing out what we called our strategic initiatives, or what are we trying to accomplish for the year. And so in 2022, that was no different. We had a set of 6 initiatives that we were working on. And so I wanted to quickly just go through with you, how did we do on those? So number 1, it was important to us to create a transformative and sustaining leadership team, where we felt the spiritual ministry team, the staff, the board, we're all committed to working together in a collaborative way, and to build unified and effective relationships. So how did we do on that, and how are we really measuring that? Well, it's somewhat subjective, to be truthful. But I can tell you, for the first time in a few years, you'll all attest to this, we are going to have a smooth transition of 2 board members. All right. So yay to us for that. Huge accomplishment to all of us. Todd and I are rolling off today, if you're not aware of that. This month will be our last month. It's not successful. My goal was, let's increase attendance by 100%, right? And kind of at the time that we met this goal, we were still kind of coming back from COVID and all that. But honestly, when you looked, between online, people were joining online, people were showing up physically, we maintain a pretty good attendance, even into 2021. So our average attendance in 2021 was 76 people. Our average now is 90. So that's an 18% growth, right? So still growth, right? Most businesses would say an 18% growth rate is actually really good. So maybe I was a little aggressive. And I'm kind of thinking Aaron might have actually achieved 100%. So we're going to hear a lot from Erin in the next community meeting. We're going to allow a larger space for her so she can really showcase all the great work that's happening there. And then, so we did have growth as far as like attendance and people coming to the weekly services. As far as membership renewals, this was a little odd to me. I kind of didn't expect this, but we had 168 people renew in 2022. We only had 138 renew, or I'm sorry, in 2023. Yeah, that is correct. 138. Yeah, a little bit of a drop there. Now we know we did have some people move and whatnot, but if you're one of those people who is a member and you just didn't get the email or you just forgot to renew, please renew your membership. It's important that we know who our members are. And then exciting, we did add 5 new community members through the new process, the integral model process that we're working with, and the community meetings that Reverend Blair and Aaron are holding every, I think twice a month now. So we did add 5 new members in the new terminology of community membership through that process. Great. Thank you, John Claude. And developing a self-funding financial model. So obviously we're going to leave a lot of this for Todd to speak to, but 2022, we were in the black again, which is, yeah, wonderful news. So a lot of our self-funding model is still dependent upon our single large donors. So that is, something like it would be so great if that was, kind of above so that we could, use it for growth and doing things with buildings and, that kind of stuff. So it was, ancillary for growth and special projects. Right now, it's really going to pay the bills. But Todd will talk more about that. But the point is we have been self-funding. Our expenses have increased with inflation, just like everything else, our expenses have increased as well. So I just wanted to kind of put out there, and this is not a hard push at all, particularly for me, but if you are, and we really appreciate everybody who's a recurring donor, by the way, that is so helpful. If you've been a recurring donor for a long time, and maybe you haven't thought about an increase in that recurring donation, maybe just think about, even a small increase, even 5%, if everybody did, that would make a big difference. So just something for you to think about there, but leave it on a good note, right? Things are looking good. Number 4, increase community engagement and retention. So I think a lot of you would probably agree that we have really, we've had a lot of revitalization of the community, especially if you look back since, COVID and how we've come out of that. We've moved toward more of a community-led and a mission-centric ministry, which I think has been really exciting because a lot of you have stepped up and said, I have ideas and I'd like to implement this or that, and that's happened, and that's exciting. And some of this has been in these community initiated groups like Healing the Heart of America was one of them, Seniors for Seniors was one of them, and there are others. So kudos to you guys for sharing your vision and helping make it come true. Define a coordinated vision for spiritual growth. So we've now had 2+ years of the spiritual ministry team working together. So I think that's wonderful. If you all recalled, when we started out, it was kind of an experiment. We didn't know how it was going to go. And, great job to our 3 leaders who have really coalesced around a vision and a mission around this and work so well together and bring us such insight and such great messaging every week. We've got YFM growing. I'm really excited about, that whole ministry. Yes, let's give applause to Aaron. And then returning to our mystical roots. So we have Sunday morning and Wednesday evening meditations, and Craig has really facilitated that. And it's been, it's been really nice to anchor around that again and give that opportunity to our community. And then finally, maintain and create new revenue opportunities for our grounds. That was another strategic initiative, and we made a lot of progress there. We had the United in Light, which I think, so fun and such a great way for our community to rally. We've had a lot of celebrations of life. We talked about this last year, and we really tried to get weddings going. it seems that weddings is probably more of something that within our community, it's really meaningful to people, but didn't really, just kind of didn't take off outside of that. And that's okay, because Celebrations of Life did, and we're serving our community that way. And then the capital funding that we've got for the parking lot and the ground upgrades, I mean, that's just, phenomenal that we're able to continue that work. So all in all, we were focused, and we made a lot of progress, guys, gals. So yeah, so great job to all of us. In the spirit of making up time, I'm not going to go through the 2023 initiatives specifically, because we're going to have members of the leadership team are going to come up and they're going to specifically address each one. So we'll just hold and wait for that. And then a little message from me. So the first thing I want to do, so I thought about what am I going to say? It's my last time with you all. The community who stepped up in 2020, the entire community, if we think back to that moment in time, right, when things were really falling apart and we had a minister that was leaving and we had COVID hitting, and we didn't know necessarily where we were headed next or what was going to come our way. It took everybody in this room, everybody online, people who I'm sure are not here today, it took all of you to step in and say, this is important. I'm going to do whatever I can to make it work. And that included all the board members who heeded the call to step in, right? And all the board members who ran. So whether you were elected or not, right, to our one board member who said, I'm not stepping down, who thank goodness she didn't, between the board and the community. And I just think back to like taking, people's temperatures and just, all the things that we did to get us back together. And every single person stepped in and said, yes, I will do what I can. I will help in every way that I can, whether it was physically here, whether it was donations that you continue to make. We would not be here and standing today and in a place where I think we're thriving again without the help of all of you. So thank you. Our spiritual ministry team who said yes to doing something mission-centric. That has been a fabulous evolution, I think, for our community. And Craig, and to our other two who may or may not be listening right now, we appreciate all of you. So together, what have we sort of accomplished over these last 3 years? So I sort of characterize it high level like this. I think 2020 was really about stabilizing through COVID, coming up with the idea, let's have outdoor services, all the people that we had that helped put the outdoor services on. That's what we did in 2020, and we made it through 2020, and that's huge. Right? Yeah, a lot of businesses, as we know, did not. 2021, that became about infrastructure upgrades and repairs and just taking care of our campus. And gosh, what fun that was. The paint swatches on the walls. I have to give so much credit to Jim DeFontis for really his leadership around all of this, and Connie for how much work she put into getting bids and making it all happen. But that was a fun and exciting time, right? It was sort of a rebirth. And then this last year has really then been about strengthening our spiritual programs and our community. And there's been, as we all know, a lot of work around that. And again, the integral ministry process program and the, spirit groups, and just a lot of things that other people are going to talk about today. So I'm not going to spend time on it, but we have really focused on strengthening what we're able to bring forth spiritually, and how we're able to get each other together and spirit groups and all those sorts of things. So that also has been fun, and moving into 2023, we expect that just to continue. Okay, you are all gifts. You are all such gifts to me. I have I've gained more from you than I could ever give back to you. So, but the deepening of the relationship that I have with, all of you and individually with so many of you, it was really an unexpected gift. Like I just did not, when I stepped into this, get that, just how meaningful it would be, all right, and how meaningful my relationships, like I said, that have grown with so many of you and with the community at large, how much that would enrich my life. And it just has blessed me in so many ways. And so for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. And then I would encourage you to stay involved. So one of the things that I've learned from, spending this time on the board is there's a lot of really big decisions that are made. And there's a lot of really big topics that come up, right? So I'll give you some examples of big topics that come up. Are we going to stay on this campus? What kind of name are we going to stay with the name Unity of Tustin? How are we going to fund things? Are we going to, are we going to invest in growth? Are we not? These are all really big topics and decisions that the board takes on, but the board does not take on these big decisions, without your input, or we would prefer not to take on these big decisions without your input. If you recall back to 2020, and not that I want to bring up things that weren't positive, but it was this community who stepped in and said, we want something different, right? We demand something different. And you made that happen. And you don't want to just sort of disappear or disconnect, because these big decisions and whatnot still keep going on. They still need to be made. So please, I encourage you, continue to come to these annual meetings, continue to ask questions, continue to plug in, to whoever you have relationships with and are comfortable with. But there's going to be a lot that happens over the next year, 2, 3 years, and we want your insight, we want your opinion. So stay connected. So that's my message there. And with that, I'm going to do a couple of new board member introductions. Is that okay? Okay. All right, don't make me cry. Thank you. Thank you. I love you all so much. Truly. Okay, so let's just do this one at a time. So first, let me introduce to you Maricela Velasquez-Pinney. And let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we will ask you, Maricela, to step on stage with me here so you can give everybody a little wave. So your 2 new board members are going to be 2023 to 2026. Maricela had her spiritual baptism with Unity in October of 2013, so she's been a longstanding member. She's been in the choir since that time as well. She was married to Jeff Pinney. They were one of the couples who said yes to our wedding offering. So we're so happy that they did. This is actually really a great story, because for the first time this year, as many of you know, we decided to do kind of a board member orientation, and for people who were interested, just give you a little bit more information. So Maricela comes to support her husband because he's our committee chair, and she's like, I might be interested in that. So we are so glad that you are and said yes. But together they have 4 kids. They've been involved with YFM for a long time as those kids were growing. So as far as what I think Maricela brings to the table here, early childhood development as a teacher, right, which is obviously going to be really important as Jennifer talks to us about some things that we're doing around that space. And then 15 years in, corporate environment, accounts receivable. She's got really strong analytical and research skills, and project management skills. You really need that to keep things moving here. So that's going to be really helpful. So quote that if you all read her background and bio, Maricela says, I value this community with all my heart and envision all that is good for our continued prosperity and growth. So Maricela, you want to come on up and let's welcome Maricela. Wonderful. Welcome. So stay standing here and then we'll get Bruce. Okay, so next we've got Bruce Baird. And also same period of time, he will be becoming Energy new board member. So Bruce has a very extensive background in Unity, as he joined Unity of Phoenix in 2001. So that's a long-standing membership. And then when did you come here? We were trying to figure that out, Bruce. Do you remember? 2019. Okay. Okay. All right. So he's been with us specifically here at Unity of History for a few years. He's been a prayer chaplain. He served on previous boards and committees to draft bylaws, which we really need. Because as you know, we've changed a lot of things since our bylaws have been updated. He worked 35 years in IT and served in roles as instructor, project management, QA, all those kind of things. So, also very, very helpful in board work. And then his key experience is really working with people to get things done. Love that. Can't stress how important that is. And one of the things that I loved when I read through again your background materials, Bruce, was this kind of statement you put forward that everyone is a part of the one universal energy expressing love in this many forms. And I think that's how you see our world. And I love that. So let's everybody welcome Bruce as our new board member. I want you guys to trip over that speaker. Yeah, come over here. Absolutely. Welcome. Okay, so does anyone have a camera? Do you guys want to get a picture of these two? Somebody, there we go. Aaron always has the social media photo op going on. Okay, I'll yeah, come over, Todd. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. Okay, thank you both. More to come from the two of them for sure. Okay, so now we'd like to thank Jeff. If you could just stand, Jeff, we want to thank you for your service as our election committee chair. Our two board members, all the work that you guys did, you and Deanna and Mary Jean, and getting everybody oriented around what we were doing and finding two great candidates for us is beautiful. Thank you. One of the things that I did forget to mention earlier on, somehow I lost this in my script, is that Steve Stokel's here with us today, and he is holding us in prayer as keeper of the flame. So thank you, Steve, for being here and doing that. So what we get to do now is you get to have this really quick little election for the 2024 election committee chair. And this is to ensure our integrity of our elections and to join the board and the staff member to lead this committee. So this person that will nominate and elect works with two other people, a staff member and a board member each year to bring our elections forward. So at this point, what I'd like to do is open it up for floor nominations. What happens here is you guys can just raise your hand and call out someone you'd like to nominate, and it can be more than one person, and then we will have a little vote, and then this piece will be done. So who's got a nominate? Who's got someone they'd like to nominate? All right, Mary Jean, you swore to me this would be easy. Okay, Zelda. I'd like to nominate Jean-Claude. You two, stop talking in class, okay? Okay. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Wait, hang on a second. I'm losing control. Okay, because Patty also has a nomination. Okay. No, you're declining. Okay. Well, I support Patty's nomination, that you would have been a good candidate had you chosen to accept, but we respect that you're going to decline. Anyone, are you accepting or not? Yes. Mhm. Yeah, I don't think there's any bylaws around that. And they're going to be ready written anyway, so. Mhm. Mhm. Are you accepting?
Okay, yes.
Okay, you're accepting. Okay, are there any other nominations for election committee chair? Yes. Okay, I move that okay, wonderful. That's been accepted. As long as we just, all agree, or the majority agrees. We just need majority agreement. So we used to have two before, but oh yeah,
But then you'll be the chair that way.
correct. That is correct. Right. You'll have two other people, but I think you might have been saying there was two people that we would vote between. But I don't hear any other nominations, and the nominations have been closed. So all those in favor? There was a second. Yes. Yes, we get. Yes. Oh, we need a vote. Okay. Can we raise of hands for all people who agree to close the nominations? Okay, that looks almost unanimous. So nominations are now closed. Okay. And can I see a show of hands in support of Jean-Claude as our election committee chair? Wonderful. Jean-Claude, thank you for your additional service. We appreciate it. Okay, now, without further ado, the man you all been waiting for and do every single time, let's invite Mr. Todd Bopel up for our treasurer report. Here's your clicker.
All right. Thank you. So the best news is I only have 4 slides. That's got to be, yay. Before I get into my slides, you've all been very, very kind to me during these 3 years, and I would echo everything Lisa has said. One thing I will say is that my job is to get up here and explain the financials to you all and to answer questions, which I'm very happy to do. My job at the board was also very often to explain the financials, make sure the board was aware of kind of where we stood financially, to make sure I answered any questions. A lot of you have assumed, and I understand why you would assume this, that the fact that we've run in the black for a couple of years has something to do with me. It definitely doesn't have anything to do with me. I have 1 vote on the board. I don't control spending. I don't make the decisions about what we do or don't do or invest in or how we spend this money any more than the rest of the board does. And certainly the staff and the spiritual ministry team have been incredibly involved week after week, month after month, to make sure that we do very wise things with how we spend our money. Mary Jean, as you all know, treats this money like it's not only her own money, but like it's all of your money and like she's responsible for it. And so I just want to make sure, as I step down from the board and we have these awesome board members who are going to continue to go forward, we're happy to answer your questions. We're happy to make sure that we take your feedback and your input. We're happy with the kind words that you expressed to us and that the praise that you have given me. But I do not deserve the praise for why we're in the black. That is not something that I have been in control of. That is something that all of us share, especially all of us as board members. And so, and it's really exciting that we have been, but I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of my role in that and how very small it has been. So without further ado, let's just get into the 4 slides really quickly. So I'm going to give you most of this. The first 3 slides are all about how we finished 2022, and I'm going to give you sort of 3 different views of how we finished 2022, just to be somewhat comprehensive. So the bottom line view, number 1, our investment portfolio had a really rough year, and if you paid any attention to the stock market, you will realize that we were with the other 2 billion people in the world that lost money in the stock market last year. And so we lost about $50,000. Those are unrealized losses. So they do show up on our P&L because that's how P&Ls work. That would be a negative on the bottom of our P&L. However, in terms of real cash and in terms of real results, that doesn't really mean anything. Our portfolio declined by that much in value. We did not liquidate those assets. We didn't sell any of those assets. They're all still sitting there, and they're all just sort of riding along with the stock market, up one day, down the next. And so that will continue to happen. If you therefore ignore those results and say, well, we don't really have any control over what that does day by day by day, and so we're going to focus on the real cash and the real things that we do have control over, our bottom line then was positive $34,000 for last year, which is really good. Yeah, so a very, very strong bottom line on an operating result basis. We did have, we had about $10,000. We are no longer on an accrual basis. We are now on a cash basis. If you remember a couple of years ago, we were on accrual basis. I had to constantly get up here and explain to you all how certain things had to be backed out of the finances because they were like CapEx and depreciation and things like that. And we all decided on the board that it wasn't really making sense to run a teeny tiny business on an accrual basis. It was creating a little more confusion than it was helping to solve. But what that means then is that when we close out a month and we haven't paid certain bills, we don't have the luxury of including those expenses in that month, even though we know for a fact they're going to have to be paid. We're not able to accrue them in that month. We're only able to recognize them when the check is actually written. So I did want to point out we had about $10,000 in vendor expenses that we knew we were going to owe at the end of the year. They did not get paid until right at the beginning of January. So in terms of the actual footing of where we ended the year, I think we ended the year at about a positive 25,000, not the 34,000 and change, just because of that. Anyway, still a good year. Still a really, really good year, a really solid, positive bottom line. As we look at the budget and what we look at there. So this is our 2022 budget. You see the actual column, which is what we actually spent, and I'll go through each of these categories. The year-to-date budget was, and this is for the end of the year, so year-to-date is a bit of a misnomer, but for the end of the year where we ended and what the delta is. So essentially, we break our budget, our expenses down into the three major categories. And to be clear, I'm going to show you on the next slide some other unbudgeted things. We don't budget every single dollar that comes in and out. You may remember we didn't actually start budgeting until the beginning of 21. So 2020 and prior, we were really running without an actual formal budget. So for Jim DeFontis at the time, at late 2020, said, can we please get a budget together for next year so that we can start to, issue some guidance in terms of where we think we're going to go and what money we want to spend. And so we broke it down into these four categories, the three major ones and then the incidental one, but the major ones were program expenses, people expenses, property expenses, and then some miscellaneous and incidental ones that then, come to a total. And in essence, we were budgeting for pretty close to break even when it came to our budgeted revenues, which are all offerings based. So the money that you all give us in giving, and then offsetting those expenses. So as you can see, our program expenses, we were about $9,000 better than budget, spent $9,000 less than we had budgeted. Our people expenses, we were almost $20,000 better than budget. Our property expenses, which then was mostly unexpected investments in the property that came from maintenance, things breaking, things needing to be repaired or replaced. We had done a lot of that in 21, but it never goes away. And so we had some of that also in 22. So we were about $18,000 worse than budget, spent more than we had planned on the property side. And then on the miscellaneous, some smaller areas, we were about $2,800 over budget in spending there. So our expenses came to about $423,000, which were about $8,000 better than we had budgeted. Our revenues, all of our offering revenues combined, came to just shy of $420,000. So on just the budgeted portion of our P&L, which is what this represents, we were about $4,000 in the red, slightly negative, but that's a really good number for us. So to be anywhere near that sort of break even, to be that close to break even on this huge chunk of all of our revenues and expenses was really positive. But what else? So what else comes in then? If we were about 5,000 or 4,000 negative on sort of these core operation recurring expenses, what else is driving us to that positive bottom line? It's these other revenue areas. So the first two lines are the budgeted ones, which are offerings and stock donations. That's what came to about $420,000. But then when you add up all of these other revenue lines, hospitality brings in a little bit of money, family ministry brings in some money, much more this year than last year. classes, bookstore, retreats, et cetera, rentals. The rental business are for renting the campus and doing the events on campus. Some designated donations which go to some specific line items. We had some really nice growth in some of these areas. And so as you can see, that brought our total revenues to $469,000. Now, all of these areas have some expenses. Some of them have really de minimis expenses. Some of them have larger expenses. We don't budget these because the expenses are directly in line with the variable business that's coming along, right? So we don't know how to budget right now for like how many celebrations of life are we going to have in a given year, and how much is it going to cost to staff for those on a particular Saturday or whenever they might occur. And so we haven't been budgeting for that. We've just been allowing for those expenses to wash out against the revenues. But you can see here, though, that this is giving us right now about $50,000 or so in additional revenues each year, and much, much less than that in expenses, which is how we got to our positive bottom line overall. I think as the board goes forward into this year and next year, they might start to budget in a few of these areas if they feel like they can start to get a handle on which of these are more predictable and which ones it makes sense to budget for. And even if you don't budget for them per se, they could still be ones that we focus on in terms of how are we going to grow these business lines? Where do we want to make sure we're trying to get some additional revenues? And then how do we make sure we're controlling the expenses that need to be spent in order to capture those revenues? And you'll hear more later from Jennifer and Kim, and they're going to talk about some of those opportunities that we've already identified. And then this is how our offerings broke down by month. So the top graph is 2021, so you can compare it against the year we just completed, 2022 at the bottom. The red bars that make up the majority of this are your normal Sunday offerings, as well as recurring giving that happens each month, whether that's via credit card or check or however it happens. The orange bars that you see piled on top in certain months are the stock donations, which come along in a much less frequent basis, but are very, very important to helping to, as you can see, keep our revenues up. And so for 2021, our total giving was about $429,000. For 2022, we were slightly down to $419,000 for the year, but not, so overall it was about a $10,000 difference. But like I just showed you on the prior slide, we definitely made that up in some of those other revenue categories. And so we're definitely seeing this continuation of emerging from the pandemic, class revenue, rental revenue, other things like that are much more driven by in-person on-campus sort of activities. Those continue to grow. And then lastly, we have put together and approved a budget for 2023. And this budget is really a reflection of the fact that we believe we need to keep investing in the operations of the church and really looking at how do we keep the church growing, whether that's, and you can measure growth through the incredible growth of YFM and what Aaron is doing there. You can measure growth through the Sunday attendance. You can measure growth through these other revenue opportunities and special events that are going to be happening, like the United in Light event in the holidays. There's lots of different ways to measure that growth, but all of that growth takes some investment to make happen, right? There are staffing implications, there are property implications. Sometimes there's just adding additional insurance lines and other really boring things that happen behind the scenes, but all of those things have to be done and they all cost some money. And so we want to make sure as a board that we keep investing in the church and doing those things correctly to make sure that we can grow the revenue base and make the church more and more successful from a self-sustainability standpoint. And so you'll see that we've increased the budget pretty significantly. We basically increased the budget by about $5,000 a month. So about $33,000 a month and change in 2022, going up to about $39,000 a month. So about $5,000 a month in extra spending. Some of that is straight inflation. Some of that is some of these new expenses that we anticipate needing to take on. But it's all geared around this idea that we need to keep investing in the staff, in the property, in the supporting services and supporting capabilities, some of which come from contractors, some of which come from vendors, all of whom also are raising prices in this inflationary environment. But we need to keep investing in order to get to a point where we can be successful and continue to come out of the pandemic and build on our revenue streams going forward. So that is the goal, and that is the budget that we have going into this year. And that's it for me, I think. Lisa?
So formally, we need to ask for questions.
Okay. Questions? I'm happy to take questions now or later, but if there's any now, I'm happy to. Yes, Arlene.
About donations coming in per head, per capita, per member.
We're going to cover that. Jennifer and Kim are going to cover that in a later slide. So that's why I didn't touch on that. They're going to cover sort of the average giving per person and what we're trying to get to cover that basic budget. Yes, sorry, I didn't mention that, but they do have that on a later slide, so I didn't want to steal that. And other questions? No?
You would need to have answered to accept the 2023 budget, because that's what we're going to do next. So any remaining questions on the 2023 budget? Did yours specifically relate to that, Arlene? No, okay. Okay.
Sure. I can.
Kurt's got a question. Oh, okay. You know what? Let me,
Mike's over there.
I mean, just,
I'll get away with it.
oh, I'm sorry. So, what you're saying is the 2022 budget and monthly is the way it was for 2022. And then we're going to vote on the other columns, the approved 2023 budget annual and monthly.
Yes.
And then that's just the difference are those two numbers.
Yes.
And basically, we're not going to vote. We're going to, if there's no objections, we're going to approve it by acclamation. But we want to make sure you guys have an opportunity to ask any questions. Go ahead, Kurt.
I'm wondering what the current staffing and hours of the bookstore is, and if there's a projection to expand that.
Mary Jean, do you want to answer that? Or Jennifer? Who's the best to answer that?
Bookstores open about an hour and a half a week right now. We're kind of at a choice point with the bookstore. The entire system needs to be upgraded. We're still running Windows 7 on those computers. We have a system that's ancient that we've been using forever and ever. Some kind of hard decisions have to be made because we either have to spend money, and for an hour and a half a week, you can understand there's some feeling of how to do this. So I just want to say that's what it is.
Okay. Okay. Here we go.
I'm sorry?
Bookstore, thanks. It's entirely volunteer. It's just me
Right.
right now. We're just open on Sundays.
The
If we
retail
want to-
part is all done by volunteers, right? The
Right. And
Bookkeeping
so we're
part
not
is,
paying anybody a salary, so everything is
Right.
pretty free and clear. And we can open more days a week if we choose to expand through volunteers. But we haven't talked about that yet.
no.
But right now it's Sundays only.
Do we have an estimate what it would take to upgrade the computerized system?
Yeah. Probably in the neighborhood of $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah, $3,000 or $4,000. So here's the bigger challenge, and this is going to be something we'll have to wrestle with as a community for a while. Prior to 2021, so in 2020 and the prior years leading up to 2020, including 19, 18, and 17 at least, the bookstore was losing money every single year. It was losing thousands of dollars every single year. And so we have intentionally, once we hit the pandemic especially, we really pumped the brakes on the bookstore operations. And I know some people don't like that, and it feels very much like the bookstore was a really important part of the identity of the campus. And I understand all of that, and there are arguments, pros and cons all around this issue. But operating that bookstore and not losing a bunch of money is really, really difficult to do. And we had tried to do it for a whole lot of years leading up to the pandemic. And so if we decide that we want to start to reinvest in the bookstore, I think we're going to have some challenging conversations about what that should look like and how much money are we willing to spend. And it certainly wasn't a bunch of money being spent on staffing, to Kay's point, but the just managing the inventory and buying the inventory and dealing with, you know, when to do markdowns and sales and how to manage all of these systems and how to do the accounting and doing an actual inventory every year so that we could report appropriately for taxes. All of that stuff is not easy to do. And it was an enormous burden on some of the staff that had to do some of those elements as well that were very much behind the scenes. So not an easy decision to make. And if we decide to close it entirely, or if we decide to reinvest in it and make a go of it, neither one of those is an easy decision, but they both have real consequences from a financial standpoint. Yes, Arlene.
Bookstore topic. I visited a church where all the books that were used or donated were available to the membership for $1 a book. And I put that suggestion forward many times and it has gone nowhere. But my recommendation is, I suspect that we have a lot of donated books. They're in those used book caddies. And if we did that on a Sunday, would you consider, thank you, Dennis DeBreed, would you consider doing $1 bookstore sale on the used or donated items to generate interest and get bodies in the bookstore, staff it with volunteers that know the route, and maybe that would help with whatever decision is made, but just clear out some of that quote unquote stuff. Thank you.
That's a great suggestion. Great suggestion. Okay, so we'll let Mary Jean respond back to you after the meeting. We'll take that down as a note. Yeah. I do want to just, the bookstore conversation is a great conversation. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we are right now, we're like perfectly on time right now, but we're not going to be if we don't keep moving. So are there any other questions on the whole of the budget itself? Okay, so the one thing that I just want to kind of add to that is, you know, Todd mentioned it's a $5,000 or $5,000 a month increase over last year. That's a $5,000 a month increase over the prior year. So it's been a big jump coming out of COVID. But if you think about it, like the amount of staff we used to have compared to the amount of staff we have today, it's still really light. So we chose as a board not to cut anything, but to continue the investments. But one of the things that I want to point out is, but we're going to have to watch that, right? So every quarterly meeting, we're going to have to take a look and say, okay, you know, how are we doing? And are we able to meet this larger budget that we put forth in 2023? Yes, Aaron.
Okay, so I was wondering if we have an update on the grant for the grounds and how that plays in with the budget, because I know we have that expense before we could.
So that doesn't play into the budget at all, because that basically the money we're spending on redoing the parking lot and the lighting and things like that Connie has been spearheading. That money is getting spent by us and then reimbursed to us by the state of California. So we're not factoring that into the budget because that's really a cash flow issue. Yes, we might have to spend $10,000 and wait for the state to pay us the $10,000, but they are paying us back every dime that we're spending on that project. And we're not spending any dimes that we know they're not going to pay us back. So it really is just an issue of managing cash flow to make sure that when we're spending the money, we have enough money in the bank to wait for it to come back. And so that's all it is. It doesn't affect the budget at all.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Todd, for another exceptional report. Don't actually leave the stage yet. So I need to say the report is accepted and will be filed. Okay. So just so you all know that. Now, pardon me? Okay. I was going to say Mazel Tov. I don't know why I was going to say that. Okay. Just as I forgot, in the paragraph where Steve I was supposed to honor Steve for him honoring us, is also the part about the meeting minutes from the 2022 annual meeting. So and the agenda. So let me just do this quick order of business. So we went through the agenda and I didn't call for approval. So the agenda was emailed out to the membership and passed out today. Was there any additions to the agenda that I showed earlier? Did anybody have anything that they did not see that they wanted to bring up? Okay, not hearing any additions or corrections, the agenda is approved by acclamation. Now we'll do the meeting minutes. So the meeting minutes were also sent out to you all. Did anybody who had an opportunity to read through the meeting minutes have any questions or suggestions about last year's meeting minutes? So we're talking about the 2022 meeting minutes right now that were emailed out to you all. And we do this every year, right? Because every year we capture the meeting minutes from the annual meeting. Okay. Hearing no additions or corrections, then the minutes are approved by acclamation. Okay, thank you for allowing me to do those makeup pieces of business. And now I'm going to invite Connie up. No, yeah, you have to stay. Yeah, so this is an ad hoc addition to today's meeting. That I don't know what's happening either. Yeah.
Well, so after that, these two people, after those reports, did we have a phenomenal board? Are we going to miss these people? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So Lisa and Todd, your contributions to the board are phenomenal. You're both brilliant people. You know what you're doing. You shepherded us through it, us being the board and the community. You were the leaders, you are the leaders, and you're so humble. Oh no, I had nothing to do with how this worked. So it is my honor to present you. Yeah. With this token of our, I was trying to, I don't stand there. So these tokens of our sincere, deep appreciation to your service, to your brilliance, to your spiritual leadership. We will miss you. We honor you for going on to wonderful things after this. You know, if I don't have the words coming out of my mouth, feel them from my heart. Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely. And if Craig would kindly come forward.
All right. Yeah. Relax. Relax in the mystery. So this is completely spontaneous, you two. I talked to Connie before or after the service today. And I just wanted to know if I could say some words to you, because, you know, being privy to the transformation over the last 3 years, you know, it's very clear to me, and you guys have touched on this very humbly, that you two were a big part of that. And I know, being part of the SMT now, how much of your time and energy and life goes into serving selflessly. And it has touched me over and over and over again. And Todd, first of all, for you, I didn't know you before I was on the SMT, but I think you're a treasure extraordinaire. And speaking as somebody that I don't need my finances, just forget it. But watching you be so humble up here today, but the way that you've handled everything with patience and grace, and you know, we're all replaceable in a way, but the void you leave is big. So that's my gratitude to you. And what you do is so important to the health of this community. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And Lisa. So I'm not gonna talk long, but for those of you that don't know the story, Lisa and I go back now about 6 years or so. And Lisa was actually part of coming to the Tao Tribe's meditations at that time. We weren't here at Unity, obviously, we were elsewhere. So the reason that I'm standing here today and is because of Lisa and my beloved Fabienne, your connection. And so because of that connection, when Lisa and Jim, who I want to acknowledge today, who had this idea of what I've now come to understand, there's a term for it, mission-centric ministry rather than a minister-centric ministry, where it's about one ego, one Godhead, one figurehead doing that. Jim and Lisa really spearheaded and got together and came up with this idea, which now we're all finding out is groundbreaking. It really is. And so they got together, and out of that creative duo, they gave birth to this idea that brought Shara and Blair and I together. And, you know, Blair and Shara and I have said, you guys, that this could have been a disaster. And I don't want to go into that, but just we laugh about it in our meetings. Blair, Shara, and I get along really, really well. We have a completely different way of doing things when we're here, but our energy together is really easy. I don't even know if we've ever had a disagreement. So what I want to say is that in the early days when that was being formulated, it could have been a disaster, but you went for it. And you asked me to come on. I had been privy to what had been happening in the community for some years. I go way back to the days of Marge. I wasn't a regular member, but I came. You know, I was here often with my daughter at the time. And to see the ups and downs and the trauma that had come to this community and what we were now embarking on, it was still in the air whether this would survive. I don't know if all of you remember, but even the gardens were just, you'd go in there and the energy was gone. Andrew Harvey came here around that time, a little bit before, and he walked through the gardens. I've heard this story, and he said, the energy's off here. The energy's out. And so this transformation that happened, it happened because of the vision that you held, Lisa. The board supported you in that, and Jim. And I just want to say one more thing. And some of you may not know this. I'm not going to go into the details. Very shortly after this all started, there was another crisis, right? Jim left. And this is what I want to say to you today, Lisa. Because Lisa was not the head of the board at this time. When that unfolding started, I wasn't sure we were going to make it. Given the trauma we had already been through, and I know some of you feel the same way, it was really unclear. We were just getting our footing, right? Just taking off. And suddenly this, like the worst thing happened. It wasn't the worst thing. It always ends up being for the best. But I was at home thinking and hearing these stories going, I don't know. This is really going to be interesting to see how this goes. In my humble estimation, one of the big reasons that it continued to take off is because Lisa stepped into the breach right at the right time. If nobody had stepped into that void, I don't know where we'd be, if we'd even be here today. This isn't something that she wanted to do. It wasn't something that she took on, you know, and was voted into. She stepped into that void because she was called to serve the community, which was now finally revitalizing and taking off. What a sacrifice that was, you know? So I really want to acknowledge you for that. I wouldn't have done it, you know, but you did. And all the board came together in that. And not only did we take off, we started to fly. And I'll just say for the last thing that it is incredible walking on this campus 2.5 years later after I came here regularly. I came in October of right before, you know, during the first year of the pandemic. So it's been 2.5 years now. The energy here is light and powerful and solid and real. And that's the legacy both of you are leaving. You know, I talked about no control today. I know it can get to be like your baby and you really love that. You're handing it off now. Just know that you're handing it off in such a different place than it was when you guys came on 3 years ago. You did your job and more. The transformation is amazing. And thank you both for that.
Okay, now I really am gonna cry, so let's keep moving. Okay, Bruce, look at this picture. How glad are we that you will be replacing Todd in some fashion on the board? Not anything against us women. We are fabulous, but you know, it is nice to have a little integration.
I'm not clear, did we agree and pass the 2023 budget by acclamation?
We did.
We did.
Yes, we did. Okay, thank you so much. So this wonderful group of women right here are going to be responsible for presenting out to you the 2023 strategic initiatives. And so with that, I would like to invite up Mary Jean to kick us off.
Just out of curiosity, who's here at an annual meeting for the first time? Never been to another one. Okay, good, good. There are a lot of newcomers. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about change and transparency. And I think about what Jesus said about change. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Repent, I'm told, in the original, meant metanoia, which doesn't really mean atonement like we think of beat yourself up, walk on hot coals or whatever. It means change, turn around, make a change so that you can hear and feel and experience the kingdom of God. So you can't be really on the spiritual path unless you're ready to change. There's just not a way to do it otherwise. We don't like change, though. Most humans don't like change, right? And churches are often places where people like to feel like they like it to stay the same, right? It's one of the things they like about their church. In this constantly, rapidly changing world, some churches can be an oasis of stability and constancy. I just come there and everything's the same. So I had a lesson in this recently. A minister from a church in Corona del Mar has a side hustle getting these employee retention credits for churches, which incidentally, we did get one for about $15,000. We haven't seen the money yet, but we will. I'm told. Anyway, this man was very interesting and he had never been to our campus before. So he loved the gardens and he came in the bookstore and he saw those David Hawkins books. And he was like, oh, we're just getting into this. It's just so exciting, all this stuff. So he was very excited to see that. But here's the part about change that kind of stopped me in my tracks. He told me a story about one of his clients who is a minister in a fundamentalist Christian church. And at the start of the pandemic, they had 100 members in their church. And when he actually was in consultation with this minister, they had 800 members. So obviously my minister that I was talking to said, wow, how did you do that? How did you go from 100 members to 800 members? And he said, well, you know, at a time of uncertainty and fear, people just want to know a couple things for sure. And he said, your kinds of church asks people to do a lot of work, to grow, to change a lot. We don't do that. We just tell them what to think, right? We tell them how it is. So after he left, I started thinking about our mission statement, transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in the world. Talk about a big ask. That is a big ask, right? Notice we don't say we're an oasis of stability and consistency. We don't say that, right? We ask people to do a lot of work, to not only change, but to transform. Wow, that is a big deal, right? So following that minister's logic, we're probably not going to grow to 800 members anytime soon. That's probably not going to happen. It's not who we are. We just don't have these fixed systems. We have systems, of course, but we're not plodding along, doing things all in the same way, expecting different results. You know what that is? That's insanity, right? We're not doing that. So it means we need to be ready for the next word from Spirit. And I don't know about you, but my guidance is almost never keep doing everything the same. Never. Things are changing around here a lot, and some things will remain the same. In fact, it's interesting to me how as we change, I feel like we're crafting a message of who we really are. We're really honing in on that. It's become very interesting to watch. For example, I like to think of Unity of Tustin as a second half of life church. Richard Rohr talks about the first half of life and the second half of life. In the first half of life, the questions are, what makes me significant? How can I support myself? And who will be with me? In the second half of life, the questions shift. Now, this is only if you transform, right? Why was I born? What is my purpose? And one of my favorites, is that all there is? That sort of started me on the spiritual path. Now, that doesn't mean our church is only for the over 50 crowd, although look around. There are a few old souls like Aaron who start asking those questions. They're advanced learners. They're people who get it. They come here knowing that, right? That's what an old soul is. So the concerns of the second half of life aren't only about chronological age, but they're also about a certain depth of knowing, a certain spiritual awareness. I also want to talk about transparency. In 2018, when we were taking a really hard look at ourselves, the number one value expressed by the community was transparency. Some of you may remember that, right? And I've worked with a lot of boards, and I must say that this board has been exceptional in their ability to ask hard questions and take on challenges and take a really hard look at themselves in the same time. I want to recognize them for their transparency and their integrity, both. And I'm going to contradict myself a little here by saying, during one of the most unstable periods in American history, we've had 3 years of stability, which is really a big deal, especially to me. So this foundation has been established, and now we'll be able to look forward to riding these waves of change as we continue to grow and to experiment and to make a positive difference in the world. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to advance your slide for you, but come on up, Connie, who's going to talk to us about the evolution of the spiritual ministry team. And thank you again so much for that beautiful presentation to the both of us. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, so I will try to move right through this so that we keep our momentum going. What I want to talk about is the evolution of the spiritual ministry team. And as Craig preferenced for us, over 2 years ago, we embarked on an adventure of exploration and discovery. We've been talking for years about moving away from the minister-centric model that all churches have done from the beginning of time, and we had too, into something called mission-centric. We talked about it for years. Even though we weren't sure exactly what that looked like, we moved in evolutionary faith and invited 3 extraordinary spiritual leaders to team up and see what could be created. They'd never met each other. There was no template. There was no guidebook on how to do what we were asking you to do. As you were saying, it's like, how's this going to work? How could this possibly turn out? Well, here we are. After over 2 years of stability, as Mary Jean just spoke of, growth, joy, and enlightenment that couldn't have been planned or predicted. We couldn't have imagined what came out of what you three put together. All three members of the spiritual ministry team approach their work from different points of origin. But the destination is the same, to transform lives and inspire people to make a positive difference in our world. Well, the mission-centric model come to life, essentially. These three different orientations open us up to ideas and traditions that we wouldn't have necessarily ever encountered if we didn't have the three of you bringing them forward to us. And then the common threads we see in their talks, different though they all are, demonstrate our belief in one God, many paths. It just flows perfectly how that all comes together. So how do we now nurture and sustain this model through the inevitable changes that come with an evolving dynamic structure? It's moving. We're making it up as we go, all three people. So what do we do? So during 2023, we will focus on three areas. Number one, we intend to confer with each ministry team member to assess their goals, vision, and plans, both individually and mutually as a team. This helps everyone involved be able to anticipate and plan for any adjustments or changes, and to support each other. Once we all know what we have in mind, we can lift each other up in one. Number two, we want to define a 1 to 3 year vision for the ministry model, and we may include the use of a SWOT analysis, SWOT. This is a process where an organization identifies its strengths and weaknesses, its as well as its opportunities and threats. So, we'll look at all those things. And again, this helps us anticipate and plan for things that might be coming up, both positive and not so welcome. So we're ahead of the game instead of chasing after it. Number three, we will develop a transition plan for extended leaves or outgoing ministers. So much as we treasure each member of our spiritual ministry team, we know they travel on their own paths, and that could lead them elsewhere someday, far away. So we will create a transitional plan that honors each person while maintaining awareness of roles rather than specific individuals. So it's not going to be clinging to one particular character or personality or whatever, while at the same time honoring those people. So that's the plan. That's our idea of evolving the spiritual ministry team. But again, the main thing is how fabulously it has turned out so far, just beyond anything we could have figured out on our own. So thank you for that. That's it.
Beautiful. Okay. Now, I would like to introduce you to Lisa 2.0. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the integral ministry practice, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be sort of transitioning into when I come back from vacation next month. So again, Mary Jean and a couple of people have mentioned it. We embarked on this this mission, and really this coaching and training from Dr. Gary Simmons, and it's all about transforming lives, inspiring people to make a difference in our world. And then, but how are we doing that? Like, what are some of the things that we brought forward in this past year, and what are we going to be bringing forward? So obviously spirit groups that Kathy and Reverend Blair worked on. So you guys put so much effort into it, Kathy. We can't thank you enough. We know it's evolving and growing, and you'll be talking probably a little bit more about it, but they're launched, right? And half of everything is just getting something launched. They will get better. We will get tighter with them as things, as they evolve and we continue to have them. And you can expect them to go forward into 2023. Board development. So something that we had for the first time, at least since I've been here, is, we invited the community to come hear more about what the board does. And we had a formal structure for that, a PowerPoint deck, and we walked people through, if you want to run for the board, what is it that you can expect? So thank you again, Jeff, for your work there. The shift to automatic giving and cooperative share. So we've talked a lot about that. We do have a lot of automatic givers right now, which is great. And then we'll continue to try to define that better so that we can project and predict and make plans for the future. But that is a part of this IMP model. Weekly updates. So we've introduced from the platform, every Sunday, somebody different comes up and gives an update. So we've had updates from the, like an evolutionary update from the spiritual ministry team. We have community update, a board update, and now we've added transformational stories, right? So you continue to hear from your leaders and the community members as to what's happening. And then the community bi-monthly orientation. So that was completely restructured, right? That was something that Aaron and Reverend Blair put a lot of work into, had a lot of coaching from Gary Simmons on this. But the way we do now board orientations is completely different. So thank you, Aaron, for your service and commitment to that. And then community inspired leadership across the ministry. So I mentioned this at the very beginning, right? But continuing to have you guys step forth with your own visions, right? And bring that to light. We look forward to seeing a lot more of that in 2023. And we welcome you to do that. We invite you. So if you even have like an inkling, hey, I'm thinking about this, share it with somebody, put it out there. Let's try to make it happen for you. And then finally, this is the Lisa 2.0. So the art of quantum living practice. This is a 6-week course. The whole leadership team took this course with Gary Simmons. I forget how many months ago it was. Was it June? Yeah, it was over the summer. And we got so much value out of it. I personally got so much value out of it that I decided to take actually the training so that I could teach this course, which I just finished last Thursday. So a lot of thank you. A lot of evolutionary stuff going on in my world right now. I'm going to tell you a lot more about it. As I mentioned, I am going on vacation on Friday. I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks. But when I come back in April, I'll put together something that's more in depth so that you can all understand more about what this class is and why it might be important to take it and how it fits into this overall QLP program that we're embarking on. But this is just a quick slide to say, what is it? Okay, so it's based on this concept of awareapy, which was coined by Dr. Gary Simmons in his book, The Eye of the Storm, if any of you have read that. It's the act of becoming aware or conscious, which interrupts or otherwise automatic programmed kind of responses and thinking. And it supports individuals in understanding the dynamics of meaning making, which, I have found so powerful in my life. How do I make meaning out of, the things that I encounter as I walk through this world? And these things obviously underpin our perception, our intentionality, and our personal well-being. Why is it important? Well, the secret, if you've probably heard this in various different ways said, the secret to crafting a soul-centered life is becoming masters of ourselves. And I remember when I was first introduced to this concept, probably 10 years ago when I started taking Unity seriously, I literally never thought of the idea that I could control what I thought, right? Or how I perceive things, right? I just thought everything happened to me. And so this is a way of really understanding, what are your reactions to things and how do you understand them better and how do you take better control? One of the things Gary Simmons says a lot and premises his work on, this work in particular, is imagine living a life as if nothing and no one was against you. And that's a pretty big statement, right? Because we all kind of want to think, oh, that thing happened or that person, didn't like when I did this or that. And, maybe they're not as supportive as I'd like. But this is a whole new way of seeing things happening for you and not against you. And so what are some of the benefits? Well, it can produce dramatic shifts in consciousness and state changes. I think I'm probably not allowed to say they can lead to stage changes, but I think that this work probably can. It can lead to an experience of transformation and integration, which is then demonstrated in new behaviors and the way you show up. It supports growth in both and the foundational underpinnings of a lot of this. It's very research based. So a lot of the foundational underpinnings are based on emotional intelligence and Cindy Wigglesworth's work on spiritual intelligence. So it can have the effect of supporting your growth in both EQ and SQ. And what I really loved about it and which prompted me to actually take the course itself is that it gives you an opportunity to literally rewrite your story. and to show up as the best version of yourself. And when I say rewrite your story, it can be literally rewrite your story, as if you're like inventing a new story that can then help you as you move forward to kind of live in that space. Or it can just be literally a rewriting of the interpretation of your story. So the next time you might encounter something similar, you're showing up differently. I found this so powerful that, like I said, this is why I took the training. So when I get back, I'm going to have dates and all this kind of good stuff for you guys. I'll have more detail on what the class is all about, but I really look forward to offering it to all of you and, you know, facilitating it for those of you who would like to take it. And so with that, now we're going to hear from Reverend Shara.
So hello, my beloved Unity of Tustin family. I'm so excited to present a little bit about how we're moving forward in our spiritual development in 2023. And since I only have 7 minutes, let's get right to it. So the structure of the spiritual ministry team, affectionately known as the SMT, is actually in itself an aspect of spiritual development where exposure to 3 unique messages offers the opportunity to expand your consciousness. Sometimes it may even feel uncomfortable, but that's where the growth is. And the one of us you prefer the least may be what your soul needs most. Because part of developing wisdom requires holding different points of view. And Reverend Blair, Craig, and I collaborate with a really lovely harmony, and we trust our individual voices and collective coherence supports all of us in being emotionally, cognitively, and spiritually open and flexible, even as we deepen. Now, in addition to Sunday service, Craig supports us in waking up through his online and in-person meditation every Wednesday night, where he creates a beautiful energetic field in the sanctuary. It's amazing how effortlessly the 75-minute meditative experience flows when we are immersed in the eternal now. Craig and Mary Jean also coordinate the Sunday meditation before service, a lovely way to deepen your Sunday morning experience. Craig also offers a meditation retreat 3 times per year, with the next one scheduled for May 21st after service, so mark your calendars. Reverend Blair coordinates the community membership process with Erin Hostetler and spirit groups with Kathy Andrews. And hot off the presses, Reverend Blair will also be offering an amazing prosperity class entitled Why Not Be Rich? Beginning in 1 short month on April 13th for 6 weeks at 6:30 p.m. So here's a teaser. Why Not Be Rich is a multimedia study course in prosperity developed and taught by Martha Giudici, a legendary Unity minister. She's not chicken soup for the impoverished soul. She's a 16-ounce can of energy drink. Reverend Blair will guide us through the material and be with us on a journey of newfound blessings. So mark the date and/or sign up on the sign-up sheets at the back of the sanctuary today. My talks for 2023 focus on the 4 quadrants of transformation: wake up, grow up, clean up, and show up, inspired by the hero's journey. I continue to offer my Sunday Salon, which are wisdom sharing circles hosted in the sanctuary the last and first Sunday of each month, and all of you are welcome. A pilot group just completed a 6-week We Space Mystical Prayer and Whole Body Meditation group, and we are now designing how best to offer this group ministry-wide, so stay tuned for that as well. And check the e-blast for a rich assortment of spiritual enrichment opportunities from our beloved community, including a mystical book study on Tuesdays at 10, followed by a Course of Miracles at noon, a new Friday Course in Miracles class at 7 p.m., a Power versus Force book study on Sundays at 8:30 a.m., Javon's class on the Choice Thursdays at 6. We also host the Song of the Earth celebration each quarter with Reverend Adelia, with the spring gathering scheduled for Sunday, April 23rd after service. So our schedule is bustin' at Unity of Tustin. So spiritual development also takes place in how we evolve our infrastructure and way of doing ministry, which we're doing with our integral ministry practice coaching program that encourages engagement where we all participate as owners and participants of our beloved community. Spirit groups are part of this initiative in that they invite transformation through leadership as well as learning. And in the second half of 2023, we will increasingly be delving into community-wide shadow work using the quantum living process led by our very own Lisa Kolobar. Shadow work means rather than focusing on the splinters in our neighbor's eyes, we remove that big log in our own. And the SMT will reinforce developing our shadow work capacity in our fall retreat and community programming as well. Finally, we will also be increasing opportunities for in-person classes and workshops. I think we noticed at James Simmons' recent workshop that there's powerful energy where two or more are gathered. So in June, we will host a greater community-wide prayer toolbox all-day workshop with a master teacher that Mary Jean is organizing. Coming to church on Sunday is certainly important, but not enough for the transformation we envision for our community to make a positive difference in our world. Unity of Tustin has a mission to provide the container for transformation through study and teaching, practices like meditation and prayer, being in ownership of our community, and connecting with others on the spiritual path. I sign off with a bow of deep gratitude to Lisa Kolobar and Todd Bopel, who served our community with extraordinary leadership and who have positioned us so well to deepen in spirit and manifest as the beloved community. I look forward to a year of blessings and abundance, and I love you all.
Beautiful message. Thank you, Reverend Shara. Okay, with that, let's invite up Jennifer and Kim Manning, who've got lots of more good stuff to share with us. And by the way, we're running just on schedule, so we're going to get you out of here on time.
Okay, I'll talk fast.
No, just on schedule. Oh, we're good.
So most of you know me by now. I'm Jennifer Cunningham. I'm the operations director. So there's a few things that we're working on for revenue generation for the community. First one being the rental leasing of the education building to a preschool. And preschools are very much needed in the Tustin community, as I've been learning through this process. Right now, we have 5 viable applicants that want to rent the space, and they are all being vetted for philosophical fit, financial health, and personal and spiritual alignment with the community. And so, as you know, the building is there, and it sits empty Monday through Friday. So we're really trying to, make the best use of that space. But, I know some of you might be thinking, well, what about YFM? What about the classes that are being held in there? And it's very typical with these types of leases that a provision is in the lease agreement that allows for the use of the facilities on Sundays and in the evenings. So no problem there. And the church will be making some minimal modifications to the outside boundaries of the church and a little bit to the inside as well to get ready for that. The annual lease income that we can expect from that will be, I'm thinking, approximately $60,000 a year. Yeah, it's not bad. With an annual 3% increase over the term of the lease agreement, which is typically 5 years. So, that could be some pretty good revenue. That additional income will offset the cooperative share, which Kim will be speaking to in a few minutes. So as we raise the income for the church, entirely, then that means that the donations among you may go down. The next item is the meditation gardens. And I think this idea, I'm not exactly sure, but I think this idea generated from Patty Higgins a while ago and maybe some other folks in the community. Not sure who brought up this idea initially, but The idea is to create a separate foundation / nonprofit outside of the religious organization. And because meditation has become, so mainstream, that there's many individuals and nonprofit foundations who would be willing to give to a meditation garden in the Orange County community. But they don't want it to be affiliated with a religious organization. So the idea is that we form a separate entity, perhaps calling it the Meditation Gardens of Orange County, with a separate board, and that would allow foundational money to be donated to offset like the maintenance costs and the upgrades to the garden. So there's possibility there and working on that. This is an experiment, so not sure how that is going to, all unfold, but we are stepping out in faith and possibility there. The last item for revenue generation is around grants. And as was mentioned a little bit earlier, the church did secure a security grant of about $200,000 last year for lighting upgrades, fencing, locks, that kind of thing. Expertly managed by Connie Carter. So yeah, and I believe we will start seeing some of the installation of those items in the coming months. And then I am, also continually researching other grant opportunities for money that may be out there that we can benefit from as well. So those are the 3 items, and Kim's going to talk about community share.
Hello. So I'm going to talk about cooperative share, and where's the? Oh, you can press the top. Okay. Cooperative share. Okay, this is calculated by taking our monthly expense budget, which Todd already mentioned is about $38,675. And so we're saying 39,000 as an approximate number. And then we take the approximate number of attendees of the church, which is about 135. And right now we have about 100 who are recurring givers, which we would encourage anyone who is not a recurring giver to become one. So that cooperative share, you just divide the monthly expenses by the number of attendees, and it comes out to about $290 per attendee per month. This is voluntary, and this is a goal, but it's not going to be doable for everyone. But you may think, oh, I don't know how much can I afford anything? Well, if you think about how much you're paying for your cable TV, you might be paying $100 or $150 a month. And so, there may be room in your budget more than you realize that you could make the cooperative share. So it is something just to consider. And as the other legs of revenue, which would be the preschool and this other foundation to help with the gardens, they do help. But the more we are self-funding just through our community here, the more we can grow, the more we can do to make a change in the world. And here are a few ways. There are donation opportunities that give you tax benefits. So one of them is to put it in your estate plan, your will and your trust. I have one in there. When I die, there's some money going to the church. And you need an attorney to help you with setup with that, or a financial planner. Gifts of appreciated stock. So if you bought stock years ago and it's increased in value, if you were to sell that, you would pay tax on that gain. It's called a capital gain. But if you were going to be contributing to the church, you could contribute that to Unity of Tustin directly. Give them the stock. Don't sell it, but give it to the church. The church then sells it. And so that way you don't have to pay that capital gains tax on that sale. And you also get a charitable deduction on your tax return for the full amount of the market value of that stock. So it helps the church, and it can help you too. And then another thing is, when you reach the age of 73, that's starting in 2023, used to be 70 and a half, and then it was 72. So if you look it up on the internet, you're going to find all these different ages, but right now it's 73 starting this year. If you have IRAs and individual retirement accounts or 401ks, you are required to take a required minimum distribution. If you have a Roth IRA, you are not required to do it from that because you don't pay tax on those distributions. But for just a traditional IRA, you would, or 401k. So you're required to take those because the IRS wants you to pay tax on it. That is going to be taxable to you. If you don't want to pay the tax, give it to Unity of Tustin directly. And there's no tax on it. So you have to do it. It's called a qualified charitable distribution, but it's a way to help you. And I have a flyer here if anybody's interested. Has some websites and things like that on it. Thank you.
Some of these ideas are just really, really smart. So thank you for sharing. Okay, we saved the very best for last. Why? Because it's about you. So let's invite up Kathy Andrews, and that's also Jennifer is going to come back up for. Did she already advance? Okay, there you go. And Jennifer, there we go. Perfect.
So around building infrastructure to support the ministry and the community teams and leaders, I've reached out to all of the ministry leaders and, kind of offered to be the liaison to the board of directors and to the staff. So I have kind of gotten some input and some summaries from the different ministries. So the idea there being, if we can all communicate with staff and board, more cohesion in the community, so we all know what each other is up to. If there's issues, we can address them as needed versus waiting until they become bigger issues. So each ministry is invited to share a monthly summary so that I can then share with the board of directors. So I welcome that from all of you. And with that being said, it's you all here and many of the other people who are here for the service who volunteer every day, really, mostly on Sundays, but throughout the week, there's always people here working and doing different things. It's just amazing to me that when I'm here working during the week, I look out and seems like there's always somebody working on the grounds or doing something around, the campus. So I wanted to take this opportunity that if you are a volunteer in part of a ministry, that you now stand and be recognized among your fellow volunteers, because we could not do it without you. So please stand. Yeah, most of the people in the room, right? Well, thank you for all that you do for the community and for your serving. We really appreciate it. And then, let's see, lastly, the community outreach through Unity of Tustin events. I was going to say University of Tustin, but that was my old job. As we move through the year, there will be many opportunities for us to participate in events happening here on campus. For example, some of them were mentioned earlier: Celebration of Life, United in Light, different fundraisers, spiritual education programs, which we're generating more of, including, some guest speakers. Additionally, Unity of Tustin is a member of an organization called 1OC, which is a nonprofit resource center. They're actually right down the street, very convenient. And they have many opportunities that I'll be investigating for our community to collaborate with them on service activities. And then I recently joined the Tustin Chamber of Commerce. So it's the goal with that to actually, do more in the surrounding areas as well as the greater Orange County area. So update there. Thank you. And Kathy.
This time I am not forgetting the mic. I have been known to do that. I'm talking more about strengthening leaders and our community leaders. Strengthening community leaders. What does that mean? You might have seen that there's the books leaving from the library. We're not putting a gym in there. That's not what it means. It means that when we look at this whole room, so much of our leaders, whether we're in one of the ministries and leading it, being part of it, you're showing up. We're saying, or you are leading a ministry, whether it's hospitality or one of the new ones that's coming up. how does the church support you? How do you become better and continue to use that experience of leading to grow you spiritually? And I've been really kind of cooking around with this, and this is things that have on the next slide, the big green button. We're looking at taking some of the trainings that you heard Shara talk about, and us all talk about the classes we've been taking for years, and turning around and saying, what's different? How do we shift the classes a little bit so it helps us lead our groups better? How does it help us move other people further along on the path? Because Blair and I had a leadership engagement meeting January 20th, and we talked about the STEP process, which I've got a little bit more about on the next slide. It's one of Charles Fillmore's things he really importantly said that we're bringing back into things is we're here to develop co-workers on the path. None of us are here to sit in the chairs and listen to someone up on the front. That may happen for a while, but then how do we keep encouraging us to keep moving forward on the paths of engagement? And what are those steps? But what part of having that all kind of get rolled out is on the next slide, I was showing where Blair and I are going to have another workshop. But what are pieces of training that we can kind of shift around a little bit so that we're, as leaders, better moving people along on their engagement? For example, I'm looking at this prayer practice. Just imagine, if you will, that you're in the Seniors for Seniors group and you want to have a lunch or dinner at your house of a subset of those people. And you're like, oh, this is unity. We're going to open with I'm really shy about opening with a prayer. And you find yourself like, wouldn't you like a workshop to help you get over whatever that fill in the blank was? That's where we say it's a difference between taking a prayer class where we all learn about the structure of prayer and we may be chaplains and all that, but the flavor is a little bit different when we're saying, okay, I'm showing up with a group of people. How do I get more comfortable with inviting people to pray? How do I have done it several times so I'm a lot more comfortable doing it myself and maybe less judgment? All those things that happen there. So that I started thinking about what we can shifting things so that we're all better at the different pieces that help us become leaders that are helping people become co-workers on the path. And what do they look like? We all know diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is something, but it was something we're all taking in. Was there a little different flavor if we're leading a group of 6 or 30 people? How do our conversations a little bit different? And so we're doing some brainstorming around that, and that's partly around because as we've been talking a lot about spirit groups, that everybody in a spirit group helps make the small group run. And the facilitators, after a little while, the Unity Worldwide Ministries wants to see the facilitators get training on how to be how to lead, and it's all sorts of different pieces. It's new for Unity Worldwide Ministries, new for us, but we're looking at what are those things, and it might be like a prayer workshop, the DEI workshop, and looking at the pieces of engagement like Blair and I have done, and we're going to do a second one. So this is supporting leaders so that we can support the community. And so this is something emerging, and I'm probably not speaking incredibly coherently or linearly around it, but this is like a brainstorm of saying, we want to do this because Unity's got a great message, and how do we get this message to more people? And so we can build our capacity and do more. And we all learn the most by experience. So how do we help each other move along with that? So that's kind of what this slide is about. Yeah. Unity's new 5 pillars. I just want to say a little bit about that is that Unity Worldwide Ministries rolled out these 5 ministry pillars that we know there's the 5 principles, and this is something different. So that we'll get more consistency in what you hear about in Unity churches around the country, and it's including regularly mentioning of the Fillmores is number 1. The integral ministry, which we're hearing about a lot here and seeing a lot of pieces rolled out in that and rolling it at the Unity Worldwide Ministries recognize they wanted that integral ministry everywhere. Experiential growth. I know we're doing a lot of talking rather than experiencing today, but bringing body into it, experiences. 4th one is inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, all having the activities that we do incorporate those principles. And the fifth is evolutionary thinking and being. So thinking more about helping all the ministries include those 5 things in what we're all doing and being aware of them. And you can see the benefits of that. Our next slide. And I think we had 22 people at the workshop. Blair and I, Rose, I think raise your hands if you were there, and raise your hands if you heard about it and couldn't make it. And so we are officially going to have another one on April 8th at 2 p.m., which is the same time of day as it was for the January 20th. Briefly, we talked, there's 5 steps of engagement that Charles Fillmore talked about, and they've sort of been like reworked and reimagined a little bit and brought into like rediscovered, and saying like everything from like thinking about who first finds out about us and so they show up on campus, now what? You start getting engaged and showing up regularly and to some ministry, you practice. We go around in circles for a long time between learn and practice. And then the 5th one is inviting other people along with us, and so that they're leading that same as much as we are. So we kind of gave an overview of that and had some great outcomes to that. Many of you have heard from the ministry leaders, have heard directly or indirectly from Blair to get a couple paragraphs about the ministry so it's up on the internet, because we know the internet is where a lot of people, if they're church shopping or they see us first, and we're so much more lively if there's written by us and pictures of us up there. So this has been a great outcome already. And I look, there is stuff about the spirit groups up there. There's this new material about choir and new material about Reiki that's up there already. So yay. So I think that's a really good thing. And there's been some informal things, snowball effects. Like I think for one of the book studies, Harvey's book study, that he recognized some material that was on the calendar was out of date, and he knew he needed to do something about it. And then, because we're kind of focusing on it happened. But we're expecting a lot of, it's not like just the workshop, there's a lot of fallout from that. So the plan for the April 8th meeting is to look again and at what does it look like for people that are first showing up? Because again, we've got a great message. How do we have people show up and say this is the place and know that this is a place they want to keep getting involved? Right, so we can keep doing that better. And now I get to invite Lisa up. I think
we'll do some Q&A. Yeah. Wonderful. But I did want to say, Kathy, that unsolicited, I ran into some of our members at a Costco who told me that January 20th meeting and workshop was great. So if you have an opportunity to go to the one in April, I highly encourage you to do so. So thank you, Kathy, and thank you for everything that you're doing. All right. Woo! Thank you all. You have really stuck through a lot of content here today. I appreciate every one of you for doing so. We are almost on time, but we got started 10-ish minutes late. So I do want to offer a bit of time for Q&A if anybody's got questions. And I just want to go straight to who's manning the Zoom? Okay, any questions on Zoom? Nope, okay. Any questions from anyone physically present here with us today? Yes, Carrie.
Speaking of celebration of life, I was wondering, I maybe just don't hear if there's ever a congregant member whose family is having a celebration of life here at the campus. If they're ever open to letting the community know, I would come if people that are part of our community have a celebration of life and they're inviting the community.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I would too. That's a great suggestion. So I think Mary Jean, Jennifer, let's kind of take that note and see if we can get that word out to people. Any other questions? I know you guys are probably like, it's been really long. We also are going to I would like to invite our 2 new board members as well as all of our current board members to stay behind a little bit. So if you have follow-up questions or any topics for us, we'll be here for a little bit. But any other questions from the room? Anybody online? One last call. Okay, beautiful. So we are going to do 2 things. We're going to have a closeout prayer from Reverend Blair, and then we're going to adjourn. So thank you all so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate you.
Hello, Unity of Tustin. I hope that for you, this meeting has been informational and inspirational. We have had many blessings this past year and a lot to look forward to. And we have especially our board and staff to be grateful for not only preparing for this meeting, but always being there to help prepare our space, our wonderful ministry, our grounds to be ready for whatever happens. So we bless them and all the volunteers who help make everything happen. Let's take a moment for a closing prayer. I invite you to close your eyes. Your living, loving presence, we give thanks for this ministry and for each one who is a part of it. We have gratitude for the past year, for the healing and growth that has taken place and that is still unfolding. And we speak a blessing forward into this year, that we continue to transform lives. We affirm the attracting power of love to bring to us people and resources to be about our business of being a blessing and being in transformational mode, moment by moment. We affirm the prospering power of love to anoint each of us with the gifts that we need and the awareness that we need to bring forth more and more good for us as individuals, for our church, and for the larger community. We bless all the groups, all the ministries, all the programs, all the activities, and see them energizing and transforming. We see them lifting up people in their lives, bringing forth greater good in the world. We open our hearts and minds to new possibilities, knowing that you are guiding us in new ways of being and new ways of doing. We give thanks for all these things with an open heart, overflowing with the good that we see and the good that we expect. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for the transformation that is ahead of us as individuals and as an organization. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Amen. Well, dear friends, God bless you.
All right, beautiful. Yes. Oh, of course. Have everybody come up? Okay, new and old, new and current. Past and present board, yeah.
There was just one message from thank you so much to everyone who shared and helped today and all year long. Thank you again for all your service, heart, expertise, and ideas in all the ways. Much love and deep gratitude.
Thank you, Fabienne. And welcome home, Fabienne. She's back, for those of you who don't know. Okay, we want to let's adjourn and then do a photo op. How's that? Okay, so we can make it official. So thank you all for being here. I am in such deep gratitude. Love to you all. And officially, our 2023 annual meeting is adjourned. Better, huh? Improving. Okay. Bruce, Marcella, do you want, I think we want to do some photos here. Good job.
Good job.